My name is Joel Elliott, Marketing Manager here at Folk Music Ontario. Thanks so much for joining us for the 5th edition of the Canadian Home Studio Tour, this time with music maker Danielle Allard. I'm very excited because it's going to be a great conversation. Before we begin, I'd like to note just a couple of things. First, here in Ottawa and surrounding areas, we broadcast from the traditional and unceded lands of the Algonquin Anishinaabe peoples. I'd also like to thank many of our sponsors. Actually, there's been 5. So we got the SOCAN Foundation, Ontario Creates, and the Ontario Arts Council, Factor, and Canadian Heritage. If you've been tuned in to the Home Studio Tour or been paying attention to Twitch at all, you might have heard of Danielle Allard because hey, I've been talking her up a lot, but I think people on Twitch have been talking you up even more. I'm going to give you an embarrassing read of your bio now, Danielle. Here we go. Singer, songwriter, chameleon. Her tender voice and her combination of jazz, folk, pop, and blues will leave you pleasantly astounded. And I can attest, I've seen Danielle perform. Multi-instrumentalist, singer-songwriter, and Twitch partner. Danielle's been performing publicly for 15 years in great stages across Canada, Europe, toured Germany, Portugal, and much of Canada, but also performs 3 times a week for an international audience as a music streamer on Twitch, where you've been featured on the front page twice and in the New York Times very recently as well. By day, because I mean, that's not enough to keep all of your time together, obviously. You got to be doing other things. You're also a professor teaching the youngins at Algonquin College here in Ottawa at the Music Industry Arts Program. Danielle, welcome.
Hello, Joel. I'm so happy to be able to see your face. I was used to seeing it so much more in the pre-times, so it's so lovely to see your face today. Thanks for having me, and thanks to Folk Music Ontario. We've done a lot of really cool events this year that even though we can't all be in the same room, we've been able to have really, really cool discussions. So thanks so much for having me again today.
Oh, that's no problem, Danielle. And I mean, FYI to anyone watching who couldn't tell, Danielle and I do know each other, not only because the art scene here in Ottawa is pretty small, but also because we're friends. It's fun. But Danielle, the people need to know all kinds of things about you, and we're going to give it to them. I really want to talk a lot about creation and isolation and finding those new fans through Twitch, because here at FMO, we've been hearing a lot of questions about that platform specifically. But for those who don't know what you're all about, tell them a bit about yourself pre-pandemic.
I've been playing music most of my life. And I think that's the story of many musicians, right? We just kind of pick it up at an early age, and it's something that's difficult to ever walk away from. It's just kind of a part of you, I think. And I started studying when I was quite young, mostly focusing on vocal performance. So I really love to sing. When people ask me about playing instruments, I normally don't define myself as an instrumentalist. It's normally, well, I sing songs sometimes. And I really got hardcore into training in that area when I was young. Went to Canterbury High School here in Ottawa to continue to train every day in vocal performance. And I was just really lucky in that space that playing guitar was the cool thing to do. And I am not a very cool person. So I learned how to play the guitar in an effort to be a cool person. And it was also this, I'd started performing a lot, and then I'd found myself with the only way of accompanying myself or not singing a cappella was with karaoke CDs, and that just continued to make me uncomfortable. So picking up guitar and then picking up piano a little bit later, I like to say that I kind of just dabble in a lot of these things with the priority being the singing. But before this, I was typically performing about 75 live shows a year around town, everything from small gelato shops to cafes to things like City Folk and Blues Fest, so some of our larger festivals. One of the biggest shows that we did right before kind of all of my shows were canceled for a very long time was a show at Centrepoint Theatre. So you get to do a lot of really, really fun things, but I was typically getting up and playing with my acoustic guitar. Dragging around a lot of gear when you're a solo performer, it's not it's not the most fun. So if I'd ever play piano live, it was if the venue normally had the piano already there, and I'm like, hey, I could just hop on the piano for a couple songs. But for the most part, if you ever saw me live, it was solo acoustic with my guitar. For some of those larger shows like Centrepoint and Blues Fest, I mean, we'd have up to a 7-person band, but that wasn't a typical performance. That's just if I had the opportunity and I knew I could pay my musicians well, then it's like, okay, then join me for this really big show and we can have a great time. But I was definitely not in this situation that you see around me right now, pre March 2020.
I'm glad you mentioned that. It's a nice segue into what my next question was, because I know you've released 2 albums, and I went to your last album release, Passing Notes. It was a lovely time in a lovely space, and it seems like a lifetime ago, when it was probably only like 2 or 3 years ago. Long story long, you were creating tunes, you were laying down tunes, you were doing shows in Canada and otherwise. What exactly were you up to when news came in that everything's shutting down?
Yeah. It was a lot that last day. I think about it often, and I know that you and I, we saw each other. Alka, who's here as well, we'd seen each other March 12th
Mm-hmm.
at the
Mm-hmm.
Capitol Music Awards. On March 13th, I teach in a variety of different programs at the college, so I ended up having time with all 3 of the programs that I teach in Friday, March 13th, Friday the 13th, and we're just kind of scrambling. All these new announcements of things being canceled, everything's kind of up in the air. And I teach in public relations, performing arts, and music industry arts. All are super events driven. And we had been already working January, February to get all of these different students. I think we had uh, definitely over 180 students at that point, split across the 3 different programs, working on making things happen in the month of March and April. And that's kind of like their huge summative task: charity campaigns, variety performances, studio time for all the music industry arts students. So that was a really hard day, being with all those students and walking them through those announcements and kind of figuring out, while everybody's crying and sanitizing themselves, what the next few months are going to look like. And then that night, it was the last night we were able to have public events, was March 13th. I was performing. So I had taught 3 classes that day, and then that evening I was performing at Overflow Brewery. And it was a very, very strange, kind of surreal experience. And I think most of us there that night realized that this is going to be the last time that we were all going to be in a space like this for a very long time. But yeah, leading right up to it, I was still performing.
Well, I mean, it's a bummer, and we all miss stages. And I like to say, like, I'm not sure what I'll do in front of a microphone when I actually get in front. Like, what is this? Who are you people? Why are you here? But let's talk about specifically how you have found an amazing audience, because we've done a number of these home studio tours, and people have been talking about how they've recorded at home and they've made new friends, but not necessarily a lot about streaming shows. And
Mhm.
you, and correct me if I'm wrong, you weren't on Twitch before the pandemic. You just decided to give it a go. Tell us what led you to that. Like, how much missing
Yeah.
of the performing did it take before you took that leap?
Well, my last public show was March 13th, 2020, and my first ever live stream of music on the internet was March 15th, 2020. So it took me 48 hours, Joel.
Uh, are you teaching PR or
Before I was like,
something?
I don't know what to do with myself.
Wow, and you went right to Twitch for it? What made you choose that platform?
No, I didn't actually make my way over to Twitch for a couple of months later.
Mm.
At first, that was supposed to be the launch day of my students' charity campaign. I was going to be performing March 15th at Live on Elgin.
Mhm.
We were going to be launching 12, I believe that campaign, we had 12 different events to raise money for Ottawa inner city health. And I felt so, I don't know. I went through so many different emotions at that point, but I was like, I'm just gonna pretend like everything's fine and we can still have the lunch and we can all be together and I can still play music for all of you. I'm just gonna do that on Facebook and Instagram.
Mhm.
And I'd gone live on Instagram and Facebook, but kind of in more of a business capacity. I'd never played music on the internet. That wasn't something that ever really crossed my mind as a thing to do. And then I was like, you know what? We can try that. Typically, we'd be doing something called Art Night. So I'd feature a different Ottawa based singer-songwriter every 2 weeks at different Stella Luna Gelato locations prior to this as well. So, like, we're just going to do Art Night on Sunday everything's going to be fine. If I tell everybody it's going to be fine enough, I will also be fine. And so we just set up. I had my laptop, I had my cell phone, and then I just ended up doing that. And there was such a positive response that I just started doing it like 3 days a week. I started doing kind of venue takeovers as a lot of our restaurants and venues were struggling to figure out. I took over for Live on Elgin a number of times. A bunch of different restaurants in town would have us take over their socials just to say, hey, we're still doing live music in some capacity. I did a lot of charity events in those months too. And then it just ended up getting to a point where I had enough people saying, hey, why don't you stream on Twitch? And we saw kind of a lot of impacts on our numbers, right? I mean, the live stream algorithm was prioritized above everything. So if you were streaming at the beginning of March, everybody was seeing it. And then all of a sudden there was that kind of like lockdown on that in April. It's like, well, if you want people to see your streams now, you gotta give us some money. So everybody had just kind of kept pushing and pushing and saying, hey, why don't we try out Twitch? So I did an experimental
Mm.
Twitch stream, and it was also because I had to prepare curriculum for my students. I teach a stage performance class for music industry arts, and it's like, how do I teach this on Zoom? And I'd also kind of found this outlet for myself in March and April that I'd loved being on Instagram and Facebook and having the chance to see my friends in any kind of capacity and being able to create a space where my friends could see each other too, right?
Hmm.
I'd always liked hosting events and hosting parties, so it kind of felt like hosting a space for everybody to be together. So if I had this, and I kind of felt a lot of hope and a lot of good things had come out of that for me, then why wouldn't I share that with my students? So I was just going there to experiment to see what it was like. And we ended up having more average viewers, a crazy response to that first stream. And I met so many strangers that had just clicked on the stream and then came in to be really nice and say nice things. And I was like, who are you, internet strangers? You're so lovely.
Well, they're now
And
part of your
it got
dino cult, so
addictive.
which we'll talk about. But I'm glad you mentioned that because you just went for it, you tried it, and then you just made a face like, what is with all these people coming in? Because and I've heard it a lot. So people have been trying to take their stage performance and take it to the online streaming sphere. And it's one thing to be able to do that. But
Mm.
Twitch in particular has a very particular type of style and audience associated with it. And you really got that from all the streams that I watched. Tell us a bit about the longer watchers.
I love that you call them that still, Joel, and it's true.
It's the technical term.
It's true. And I think that that's what we'd done. We were used to doing our 45-minute, hour-long set at whatever venue. And when I was doing streams on Facebook and Instagram, it was very similar to that. So my first few Twitch streams, 45 minutes to an hour. And that's kind of the way that it was. But since I'd been running Art Night online, I noticed all these fun little features. Like you can have your own emojis on Twitch. And I was like, people are making such great art. We could have art that's also part of this stream. Like that's a really cool concept. But you had to be something called affiliate for that. And that is when you start monetizing those streams. So that was a bit of an interesting leap for me, and that's what led also to much longer streams because as somebody who was used to not usually getting paid very much to make music, having anybody that you didn't have to beg to come to a show, just subscribing for $5, I felt like an enormous amount of guilt almost and like I need to do something for those $5. Like I realize I'm playing songs right now, but I need to do something more. Like can I play you a specific song that you're going to request? And that's the way the platform really is kind of set up, is a lot of us use so many different bots to make it work. And it was something that had also helped me manage some of the requests. It was something that I was doing on Facebook and Instagram, just asking people like, if you've been to shows, you know the songs that I play, so can you request those songs? Then people would come in and be like, Beatles. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know that. But then there's this bot where I can put all the songs that I play and then people request those. So those 45-minute sets ended up being 5-hour sets where you're just streaming for hours on end. Our stream record right now is actually 8.5 hours on stream.
That's a long show, Danielle. that's that's a
It's a
full
long
workday.
show.
Oh my
Hmm.
goodness. But like I brought up the longer watchers because this is something that people have been having a tough time with. And again,
Hmm.
I'm not on Twitch. I tried it. It's not my jam, but I understand it. And I understand that you can't, like, you have to interact with the audience in order for the show to really make a difference. And that can be tough while you're playing, but every Twitch stream, and you yourself included, isn't playing a song and then immediately going into the next one. You're welcoming who's come in. You're like, okay, I'll try to learn that. How did you adapt to that after the, like, again, the typical 45, maybe here's a little bit of a tale of how I wrote this and away we go?
Yeah. Um, well, there's also somebody who was obviously, when I talk about the events leading up to having no events anymore, it's like, yeah, I was out that night, and then I was out that night, and then I was out this night, and now I'm not out any night. So just being incredibly lonely. Like, it's super, super hard. And then I was like, oh, people on the internet will talk to me. This is so nice. And so I guess my musical style has never usually been that I've never really had a stage persona. Like, you know me, Joel,
Mhm.
you know me now talking to you, you know me on stage. Like, it's pretty much the same thing, which is why my favorite shows are house concerts
Mhm.
in which you can answer questions in between and everybody's kind of having a conversation. And then that leads to, like, oh, you like that band? Well, here, I'll play that song. So it's just this really organic way of sharing music and bonding over music. And that's always what I felt like Twitch was. It is a lot to adapt to. So even when I'm teaching students streaming, I'm having them go on Instagram first because of the crazy tech that's usually involved with
Mhm.
streaming. That can be a huge distraction. So already trying to play music sometimes you barely know. And then all the tech, it's a huge undertaking. So then when you add something like a chat, that's already a huge thing. So for me, having already streamed for 2 months with two chats at the same time, it was really good practice. But I really just wanted that opportunity to talk to my family and friends. So when it came to move over to Twitch, all of a sudden I was not just talking to my family and friends. I'm talking to all these new people and getting to know their stories from other sides of the world. And I'm a very curious person. So for me, that's usually a highlight, is the opportunity to meet all of these lovely people and get to know a little bit about them. It is much harder to do that these days. So I try to do as much of that as I can offline in spaces like Discord. But it's something that I really enjoy, is the interactivity. But keeping up with alerts, keeping up with the chat, and performing, I'm not going to lie, like, it's a lot of work. But for me, it gives me so much joy and so much energy that it really feels worth it.
Well, I mean, these are intimate shows, but at the same, like, very intimate, right? You're literally in your house with a bunch of your things. But
Mm.
you have made it to the front page of Twitch twice. And this is a big thing because there's millions and millions of people watching. And I was watching one of your streams where it's like, okay, we're going to hit the front page in the middle of the stream. And then all of a sudden, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people were watching you. Like, all of a sudden you're playing a stadium show. Like, what's
Yeah.
going through your head at that moment?
Well, we did that first front page was back in September, and I was not expecting that because I'd seen a couple of friends, and that's what I love about Twitch music, is that all the music streamers, like, we get to know each other really, really well. And then I'd seen a couple of people like, oh, I've got a front page stream, and so you go, and sometimes they'd end up 300 to 500 people. So mentally, I'd prepared myself for 300 to 500 people. And our lovely mods, I think we have mods here today actually. We had all, I think, mentally prepared for a few hundred people, and then that stream went up to 14,000. And it was really like the second that they said that we would be put onto the front page, and they just host the same stream. So it's my same setup. I don't do anything different for those streams. They just decide to put us in the carousel at the top, and it really changes the way that you do your show. There's obviously, I can't interact as much because the chat gets pretty crazy. And you end up doing a whole lot more, like, click into the stream, follow now, and you're kind of gearing the content towards somebody who's seeing you for the first time, as opposed to, like, hey, it's great to see you. We've been hanging out now for 13, 14 months. Some people are subbing now, resubbing for 14 months. So I think that I was experiencing sheer terror, but it was at the beginning of June that they not only featured us again on the front page, but we were part of a program where at any point in any stream we could be featured on the front page. So it was actually a good solid 2 weeks. And again, so much love to the moderators because we could go from our normal viewership. And I think one Monday, and this was the same Monday that we were spotted by the New York Times, we went up to 19,000 that morning.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Do you just like try to not look at the number at that point and just keep on playing kind of thing?
And I mean, some people do. You can hide the numbers, and if it's something that you get really upset about, then I'd recommend hiding the numbers and just having fun with your show. But for me, not knowing when we were featured on the front page, I knew that would change the kind of content. So I always had the number there because if I could see that the numbers were consistent, I'm like, okay, we're not featured right now, so I just do my thing. But as soon as it would jump up, then I would know now it's time to get into that specific kind of content where I'm inviting people into the chat and asking them to click certain buttons so that they stay with us even when we switch to a new part of the carousel, like all these weird things that you learn as you're doing it. But that stream we ended up streaming for 7.5 hours, and it's because like I wasn't gonna stop the stream with the numbers that high. It's like I'm just gonna sing for as long as humanly possible because this probably won't happen in my life again. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like 19,000 people all watching you for a long time all at once is pretty exciting. I'm bringing up the longer watchers again because the content that they want to see is like more intimate. They might not want to see like, oh, here's my song that I also played last week. They're more interested in things like, can you learn this song in front of me right now? How was the first time doing a live learn, as they're called, for you? Was it or kind of fun?
It's still pretty scary. And I think that when I'd first done my first live learn, I think we had 18 average viewers. So it wasn't so scary. And the people that were there, they'd been with me for weeks on end. They'd been so supportive and lovely. They're just in the chat that every time I'm like, I think I'm going to try something. And they're like, do it. I was like, okay, they believe in me. I can believe in me. But it was also this, again, it's part of my personality, that need to teach and that need to show people that they can also do what I'm doing. It's yes, it takes work. Yes, it takes commitment and dedication and being on a schedule, but it's also possible. So for me, when I was thinking about failing, I don't call people fans. I've never really liked that word. It weirds me out that like, I'm your fan. If you're gonna be supportive of what I'm working on, like I'm going to try to reciprocate that as much as possible. And like you're a friend of mine if you're going to be somebody who's supporting me like that. So I think that that's also a way that you can kind of let go of this feeling the need to have that perfect show. So if you're watching a live learn, I'm like, I'm not going to play this perfectly. That's not going to happen. I'm going to mess up a whole bunch, but hopefully that lets you see that I'm human. So on days that I'm struggling, because I'm also human, you might be a little bit more understanding, and B, you can go make mistakes too. So that's kind of like a huge theme in our stream, is that come watch me hit the wrong buttons and make mistakes all the time, and hopefully that motivates you to go do that, because all of this is still so new to me that of course I'm going to make constant mistakes. This is a lot of buttons to deal with.
There are a lot of buttons. I'm going to ask you about all of those buttons in just a second. But I want to, like, again, on the community aspect of it, because, putting on your communications hat for a second, these people do want to see that that much more intimate side of, I'm not going to use the word fan, the people who love your music and love you. And I think it's an extension of how social media sort of showed us the inside lives of artists we like, right? Like, oh, hey, wow, so-and-so also likes this coffee shop that I like. But this is much, much more intimate. You've invited them into your home, and hey, I'm gonna loop around on this keyboard for an hour or so, and I'll talk to you while I'm doing it. And I might mess up, and that's okay. What kind of feedback do you get directly from, again, not fans, from the people who like your music, as opposed to, let's say, and I know it's been a while, but as opposed to after a live show in a bar?
Oh my goodness. I don't know if I could compare the love that you feel in this online space compared to just kind of a one-off show at a bar. I suppose things like when I'd started running art night at Live on Elgin in 2015, like that was a weekly show. And so people knew, like, this is the night of the week. We all get together. Everybody's going to hang out. We're going to be messing around with each other. We have our inside jokes. I think that's the closest that you can kind of compare it to in a live show. Because if I'm just going to go to a show and it's just a bunch of people that I'm just meeting for the first time, and I mean, those are lovely opportunities too, it doesn't compare to the fact that we just celebrated a stream anniversary and people put together these like beautiful video compilations to thank you for streaming and highlight reels, and like some of the a bunch of the instruments that are here right now are just mailed to my PO box from people. Like it's completely Joel's losing it right now. Yeah, it's completely nuts.
Well, I mean, it also like our friend, our good friend Jason Colson told me about how he was streaming on Twitch and had someone order him food from Australia, and it was delivered to him whilst he was performing. Like that's amazing.
Yeah, and he just got a stream deck as well, and it was funded by his community and mailed to him.
Oh my
It's
God.
all those like crazy thoughtful things like I can't believe. And when people at the end of every stream are like, "Thank you so much," I'm like, "Why are you thanking me? like, this is my safe, happy place, and you're all so kind. Like I'm thanking you for it's such. I couldn't put into words how much this community means to me.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay. All right. You're filling my community heart with much love, but I'm very interested in all your doodads, so much so that I'm going to put on my glasses so I can see them even better. We alluded first, let's start with the software because we talked first, it might have been before the presentation, about open broadcast software. You can stream from your computer. Let's say I'm using a laptop camera, for example. I can stream to Twitch or any other streaming platform through this camera, no problem. But there are softwares that make it a lot easier and allow you to do things with a bunch of doodads. Tell us just a bit about open broadcast software.
Absolutely. So there are two main kinds of open broadcast software that people use. I've experimented with both. So when I started streaming, I did a lot of research to figure out which one that I wanted to go with, and so much research said Streamlabs OBS is so much more user friendly. I switched to OBS at the beginning of May because it is less heavy on your PC. So, a lot of us probably start with a laptop. And if you're a musician, you don't have a fancy gaming PC, then maybe you want to just start with OBS. When I read so much that Streamlabs was so much more user friendly, I don't find that to be the case. And for how heavy it is on your PC, if you want a more smooth stream, then why not just start with OBS? And it's got this fancy virtual camera option that I didn't have on Streamlabs either. And I wish, having done so many corporate events on Zoom and Google Meet and Skype, I wish that I had had this virtual webcam to stream, because then I can, with the click of a stream deck, I can be switching cameras and things like that, as opposed to what I was doing when I had Streamlabs OBS, which was just connecting my camera to Zoom and my USB mixer, and that was it. I was like clicking through the video settings to change the cameras. But I would really recommend just going with OBS Studio right away.
Mhm.
So much easier to connect it to all of the things that you're probably going to need if you're going to be streaming and doing all these Zoom events and stuff like that. But it's really not so hard. I mean, you can set up your different scenes. For me, music is a pretty expensive thing, and graphic design is a pretty expensive thing. So I taught myself a lot on Photoshop. So even like the banners that you see here, I'm making all of those with Photoshop. So you get to be pretty creative in making things work. But you can also buy overlays, have people design things for you. But what I just flipped through was just two different scenes. So I just connected two different cameras and then I built the things. And it takes time, but you don't have to have it all set up when you start. I think that I wish that I'd had more set up when I started. Like my first streams were with a cell phone. And then I felt a lot of pressure to get that OBS set up as quickly as possible. But it was a 10-day turnaround to go from cell phone to having OBS ready and streaming from there. And then as time goes on, getting upgrades and adding overlays and adding new scenes and things like that.
Like anything else, you're going to get better at it as you go. You can also
Mm.
go on YouTube and some 10-year-old will teach you how to use it from start to finish. Oh my goodness. You showed us the two cameras that is ultra
Yeah.
slick. For those who were confused, like OBS will like it's simply before the stream. So you send all of your feeds into it and then it streams out to wherever you want to go. So you're already making us
Hmm.
jealous with your awesome Zoom streaming here, Danielle. But in regards to gear, you talked about your stream deck, that thing with the lit up buttons right there
Hmm.
beside you. Is that just literally a
Yeah.
controller for your digital stream?
Yeah, it really is. So there's lots of buttons when I put this camera
Oh
on.
my goodness. Is that a tablet or is it like a specific type of gear?
It's essentially just a fancy keyboard. Like you can do a DIY and actually grab like a number keyboard and then just assign different buttons, but I am not that tech savvy. So for this, it's got a very simple interface, a very simple piece of software, and it automatically connects. It'll register that OBS is on your computer, and then I just get to decide what it is I want it to do. So I can even time certain scenes to rotate. So now this is just going to rotate through on a timer. So if I'm ever looping and I've got other things to do and I don't want to manually change the cameras on my own, it's just one button on the Stream Deck and the software does that.
That's
Yeah.
so cool. Yeah, because well, no, honestly, like as time marches on and like tech gets easier and cheaper, let's say, and easier to understand, you don't need an entire broadcast team to create something as awesome as you're showing us right here. It just takes some time to learn the setup and away you go.
Oh yeah. And I mean, I've taught all of this to myself with the help of YouTube and different gear forums. And there's so many people who are trying to do these things and even reaching out to streamers. When I reached out to a fellow streamer because I saw that they'd had a similar camera setup, I was like, "What cameras are you using for that really nice kind of back behind the studio look?" And they were using a GoPro, and I was like, "Oh, that's expensive." So then
Hmm.
I just picked up, these are just like little SJ cams, like knockoff, not fancy cams from Kijiji. Somebody was getting rid of them. So you can really make a lot happen just looking on Kijiji. My main camera is from Kijiji too, and I paid probably 10% of the retail price.
I think that's an important point to make, and we make it actually. We made it in every episode of the show. When you're putting together your own home setup, don't go
Hmm.
for the most expensive option right away. Play with
No.
gear, talk to others who you think are doing a good job, and build as you go. Otherwise,
Yes. Yes. And then you'll find out certain pieces of gear don't necessarily jive with others. And there's so many people. What I do love about the Twitch music community too is that that knowledge sharing is kind of built in.
hmm,
So you'll find a lot of us, if you take a look at our Twitch page, we have panels. So my full gear list is in the panels. And that's how I was able to pick even this microphone and a lot of the pieces that I have here is going through other people's gear lists
hmm.
and seeing, wow, I think their mic sounds great, this looks great, what camera are they using, and a lot of people already have that information that they're sharing on their pages.
You have more than just a fun deck there that's kind of like a keyboard and awesome lights and wood paneling and brick in the same room. I
So,
noticed. That's
oh
very
yeah, it's
yeah.
all about the wood paneling and the brick.
On your stream, you're playing guitar, obviously, you're singing, but you also do a lot of looping, which is super
Mhm.
fun. Do you use all three keyboards for that?
Yeah, so the DAW that I'm using, and I know that you just asked about this a little bit earlier, is Ableton. So I did a lot of research to try to figure out. A few years ago, if you asked me what a DAW was, I would not even know what it stood for. So I was the singer-songwriter. I go into the studio, wonderful people press the buttons for me, they make it sound nice, and then I go home and I put the music on the internet. But
Mhm.
I've had to learn a lot. And in my efforts to, I really just wanted everybody to see and hear me better. And we'd had so many issues with my USB mixer. I think that there was a lot of grounding issues, there was a lot of buzzing, and there was just really inconsistent noise.
Mhm.
But that was the only way that I knew how to get sound from in here to out there. And I'd done so much research that so many people were streaming by using the DAW, sending the DAW audio to OBS, and then sending everything out. So it's really easy on OBS. All I do is grab my Twitch stream key, connect it, good to go. I press start streaming on OBS, everything goes over to Twitch. It's very easy.
Mhm.
But I decided to go with Ableton because I do like live looping and because it was just so easy to add so many different audio effects. So something that is obviously important when we're singing is reverb, but if I'm talking, then you don't want to listen to a bunch of reverb like this because that's just way too much reverb to have to listen to somebody talk through the whole time.
Spooky though.
So with the click of a button, I just wanted to be able to turn that on and off, which is why I liked my USB mixer. But with all the problems, it just got to a point I was like, you know what? I'm just going to invest in Ableton. As an educator or a student, you do get crazy nice discounts on
Mhm.
Ableton. I believe that that's true on all DAW software, but I did get a very nice discount for the Ableton suite, and that's how I'm doing lots of different effects. And mostly, like if I want to do like a radio voice effect, then I can just do that with the click of a button and things like that. So I really liked that, but I'm not looping in Ableton yet. Maybe, maybe someday soon. But for now, I'm using this Boss RC300 that's next to
Oh,
me.
yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, it's just
Cool.
here. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I was using that connected. That's why I had so much analog gear trying to hook that up through the USB mixer that I really didn't know how to connect audio to my PC any other way while
Mm.
still having any control over reverb and the effects that I needed to switch from singing to speaking. So we ended up getting this all set up, which was great. And whenever I talk about we all the time, I'm just referring to the entire Twitch community and myself. Just like, okay. And then we did
Collectively.
this,
Yeah, yeah.
and then we did this other fun thing. But I'm looping through this right now. All of my, I can do different MIDI effects with the keyboard, but I can't loop it because I'm not looping through Ableton yet. And then this is essentially just functioning as a mixer right now.
Mm.
So if I want to start any loops or anything and fade them in and out, and that is still connected through Ableton.
Um, did you have to upgrade a sound card or anything, or was this all through USB?
All of these, well, the MIDI controllers are all through USB. I built a PC back in the summer,
Mhm.
and it wasn't like it's not crazy upgrades or anything that were needed. I just needed something a little bit better than my laptop.
Yeah.
And then all of the loop pedals, the guitar effects pedals that are over here, synthesizer, all of those are now routed through an audio interface. So that was a big struggle too, was the USB mixer through audio interface. It's like which one is better, but for DAW purposes, I just decided to upgrade, get an audio interface, and then control the effects through the DAW rather than trying to control them through the USB mixer. And the frustrating part is that any USB mixer you get, it's going to have trouble sending those effects through the USB. So
Mm.
it's picking up a lot of what you're sending in, but actually controlling the effects and sending them out through USB, as opposed to if I just have a 1/4 inch from my mixer into a set of stage speakers, it will pick up the effects so much better. So that was another thing. I think if I'd started over, then I would have probably just been like, you know what, Danny, just figure out a DAW, just get an audio interface and stop doing what you're doing.
Advice to past Danny. There it is. We are
Yes.
at 140, friends. We're gonna come into the Q&A at like 5:10. If you got questions for Danny, please do toss them in the chat and we'll get to them. But
Hmm.
I've got a couple of questions for you from myself,
Absolutely.
my friend. Um, there's been talk of the new space, and you've been streaming. Do you think that there's a space for streaming whilst performing live in a venue as well?
Oh, 100% Joel. And that's going to be a huge effort on the other side, but that's really going to be built in. I've even talked about a couple of different shows that I've been offered with the Twitch community, and they're like, "You have to bring us with you." Like, I don't, e- I don't even know if I can get away with performing without setting up some kind of stream setup. And of course, I mean, like you say, the Ottawa arts community is small but mighty. and people like Art and Jest and Creative Vision are very good friends. And Sean from Creative Vision has been so hugely supportive of me this year. He's been almost on every single Twitch stream. He runs a podcast now called Do More Cool Shit. And so we just released a podcast, but he is also just like, as soon as we're doing live shows, like, you just let me come in. We're going to have a multicam set up. So I think it's going to take more than me to accomplish that in a live setting. Like, this is already set up. I can handle this on my own. But for me to try to do a live show with people around and everything else, it'll take a team. But I know that we've got ideas in the works for already having a pretty big return back to live. I'm going to bring in as many Twitch performers as I can, stream it all to my channel, and have people like Sean helping with those things. And I've already started to put together like a smaller travel rig, so a very small USB mixer, a similar microphone to this. So just trying to figure out how I can have enough outputs that we can have live audio at the same time as it's being sent through the stream. And again, that's going to be on a laptop. You can stream with a laptop. It's definitely possible, but there's going to be lots of very cool opportunities to bring all my friends from around the world with me to shows here in Ottawa.
Well, and that's a good point because, like with your music on the internet, there's now different types of fans, right? Fans who will go see your shows here in Ottawa, fans who will never, ever get the chance because you're not going to play in their top part of the world. So why not bring the show to them that they can't physically go to anyway?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, and there's already been, I mean, Twitch Con is a thing, just like Comic Con.
Mhm.
There's usually an annual somewhere in the world Twitch Con where everybody travels to that as streamers and friends of streamers. But my community specifically, as you know, they even registered for this workshop saying that their organization was Dino Cult. They've decided that we also need Dino Cons. There's been talk of renting the Museum of Nature next year and having Dino Con, in which there's discounted tickets if you're going to wear a dinosaur costume. I think it's going to be great.
For those of you who don't know and aren't part of said Dino cult, Danielle often dresses as a tyrannosaur while performing. And yeah, people love it. I mean, I'd go see that. I'd go see DinoCon. Absolutely, Danielle.
Excellent.
We've got a question here from Linda asking about hollow presence technology integrated in stage venue performances. So I don't think that's live streaming. That's putting yourself on a hologram on a stage somewhere
Yeah.
else, perhaps. So say I'm reading that as you got friend or fans in the Philippines.
Yeah.
There's some kind of festival. They holograph you in. Would you be down for that?
Absolutely. That would be very cool. And I mean, we're already seeing crazy things with VR performances. You put on your Oculus Rift and you're like on the stage with the performers. People are already recording like 360 music videos. Yeah, there's lots of crazy integrations with technology and music. I was on a couple panels this year with people who were running concerts on Minecraft, running concerts on Fortnite. Like, you can do some crazy things with technology. So I don't foresee that slowing down. I foresee there being some pretty crazy experiences in the future, integrating more technology with music. Absolutely.
It's only fun moving forward. We got another question. I believe this is part of your Dino cult. Folksy Fox, David,
Hey,
could you
folksy
talk about how
fox.
Discord supports your Twitch channel and how much time you spend on Discord versus Twitch? And mentions it's their Twitch anniversary for your channel today. Oh my gosh.
David, that's so lovely. Happy anniversary. That's amazing. I'm so happy to have you here. And yes, Discord is huge. So I've mentioned Discord a couple of times today for anybody who's thinking of starting a Twitch stream. And I mean, even when we were getting Jason Colson all set up on Twitch, and he was very hesitant in the beginning because he just didn't feel like, I can't do this, and how am I going to fill emote spots, and I don't know what a Discord is, and I'm not that tech savvy. And look at him today
Yeah.
doing all of the things. He's got the Discord, he's got all the emotes. I mean, people just appear in your life and want to help you, and I'm just blown away every single time. But Discord has been huge, and it wasn't something that I really resisted. I was on every platform already, so when a couple people were like, "We need a Discord," I was like, "Let's do it. How do we do that thing?" And now we have over 1,000 people in our Discord. So if you treat Discord like it's a Facebook group, and there's 1,000 people there that get stream alerts, and it's been I spend a lot of time there, but I don't spend more time on Discord than I do streaming, because we have such a great wholesome community that there's not too much to moderate. We have, of course, like an incredible team of moderators that help with the Discord, but we also have so many people that have just kind of stepped up and said, "Hey, I'd like to help run activities. Hey, I'd like to do things." So I used to spend much more time on Discord, kind of keeping the conversation going, but now it's to a point where I can't keep up with anything. Like, I don't know what's happening on half of the Discord channels because people came out and were like, "We're creating a dinosaur realm in Minecraft, and whoever wants to join us." And they just created Dungeons and Dinos, so a bunch of people get together there every week just to play Dungeons and Dinos. They've made so many incredible things. We got an accountability squad, so once a month we set goals. I reward people with song requests on Fridays, Friday games, Sunday movies. We had a learn squad for a little bit, so we were all getting together and watching Ableton tutorials. Like, it's just like a hangout space for everybody who's ever been to our stream. And there's so many people that help run those activities that it doesn't feel like it's much of a burden for me. So I'm really grateful to everybody who helps with the Discord. But yeah, if you're going to start streaming on Twitch, you're probably going to be pressured to create a Discord at some point for offline community engagement. Just
Well,
because the people in the chat want to hang out when you're not streaming too. It's magical.
well, they've been brought together into a community based on their shared love of you. And I'm going to use the F word you don't like, fan, because that sounds very much like a fan club where they all go and they just chill out and talk about dinos and how
Yeah.
cool you are, and then create other activities around it as well. That's very, very cool.
Yeah. It's really, really great.
Oh my God, Danielle. So I want to talk about what you got coming up soon, but I'm also interested in this because you mentioned earlier, like you weren't sure what DAWs were, and in the past for your past two albums, you would have gone somewhere else to record anything and then just sold it from there. You now have much more practice with all of these tools. How much is that recording process going to change for you moving forward?
Well, I think for the first time, I have tracks that feel like they're almost fully produced.
Mm.
Not in that I'm happy with the way it was recorded. Like, this place it's not sound treated. It's, I mean, it's got some nice wood paneling, but I think that I'd like to go in and record on a much fancier microphone with somebody who knows what they're doing in terms of setting all the levels for perfect recording and things like that. But for the first time, I'm able to reach out to the producer in advance and say, "Hey, I've written the guitar, ukulele, banjo, bass line. I've also written the keyboard part. I have all of the harmonies figured out. And now that I've got it all saved on my loop pedal, because just usually if I'm talking like this on stream, then I've got that music in the background. So then
Like a
it's just
theme song.
not me sitting here in the quiet. Yeah. But now I've got that saved on a loop pedal. I don't know Ableton well enough to really record there yet, but
Mm.
it's definitely a future goal of mine is to get a little bit more comfortable, because right now it's really just set up for the performance. I just love streaming. I love playing music, and I'll figure out the recording, I think, one day, but it's baby steps. And for whoever's starting, it's baby steps. This did not look like this a year ago. And if you're interested, I can actually lead you to our YouTube channel, because we have highlights. You can see they they actually collected the it's crazy to me. I can't even words how crazy it is. They got the clip of the first time I ever looped, and then they got a clip of the Tuesday before they gave me the video on the Friday of the same song, and just went like back and forth to show the terrible audio and video and how scared I was that first time versus that same song this many months later. So if you want to see like where I started last year, there is a highlight reel there on YouTube that you can check out.
Oh God, you have montages created for you, like your own personal montage.
was the best gift ever. It
Oh,
was the
best
best.
gift ever. Danielle, you've also got some streaming shows coming up, not just on Twitch. And for everybody who listening, we've mentioned a lot of things and links where you can find Danielle. I will be sending all of those to you in my email tomorrow with the recording of this um, YouTube fanciness that we've got going on here. But you do have other streaming shows, not just on Twitch. You're on Twitch 3 times a week, but you've got some other stuff
Mhm.
coming up as well.
Yeah, so if you're ever interested in seeing live looping, and we do a mixture of covers and originals, you can check out all the different kind of bots and things if you're interested in starting streaming. That's every Sunday, Tuesday, and Friday that I'm streaming on Twitch. We're also doing, and Joel as well, we're doing this very, very fun Ovation Ottawa fundraising series. The Ottawa Music Industry Coalition has put together a beautiful fundraiser for programs for the Ottawa music industry. So I'm really honored to be a part of that. Joel and I served on the board for a while. It was so
Mhm.
lovely to work alongside Joel in that capacity too. And I'm going to be putting together a schedule for next Thursday. So we're going to be streaming on Twitch, and it's going to be a number of Ottawa musicians who will be streaming. Yeah, I've just got to finalize the schedule. I think tomorrow we're getting together just to finalize that for next Thursday evening. If you want to mark that in your calendar for Ovation Ottawa. Tons of cool things. We're playing Legend of Zelda. If you like Nintendo, I'm live learning how to play the ocarina next Saturday as part of a raid train as well.
Oh my gosh.
It's a crazy life. And otherwise, we've released 4 original tracks. They're Twitch exclusives right now because I'm just kind of thanking everybody for their support for some of these big milestones that we've been achieving. So we've already released 4 new songs that are going to be on the next album. So you can swing by at any point and be requesting those. But there is always something new. There is always something crazy. So if you want, the Discord's there for all stream announcements, and just join us on Twitch. I know it sounds scary at first, but it's a very, very fun place, and everybody is truly lovely. And it's not just my community, but the whole Twitch music section. You can find really, really incredible humans there.
I was going to mention that because, again, like when I've been watching your streams and Jason's streams, people who were not only just music fans, but also like other musicians, and not even in the same genre. Like there's a lot of EDM musicians, for example, on Twitch because their tracks tend to be longer and there's a lot of doodads,
Mhm.
but they're still in there watching you. They're still in there sending their fans towards you as well. There seems to be a
Yeah.
whole lot of love on Twitch.
It's a whole lot of love, and I love the different things that they've kind of integrated into the platform. Like when I finish my stream, I click a button and I bring everybody to a new stream. So it's not
Mhm.
like I just finish my show and then everybody goes off everywhere. It's like, here's the after show. Let's go give this person a lot of love. So that's what leads to pretty crazy growth from my experience. Like, we've got more people on Twitch than on any of my. It's gonna probably soon be than like all of my other socials combined is gonna be more on Twitch than in any of those spheres. And it's just through things like raids and just by hanging out in other people's chats. And I mean, we've just started learning Twitch music originals as well. So we have 10 streamer songs that we've been adding on Sundays. When we close down the queue, we live learn songs, community requests, and things like that. And so many people have covered my songs, and I'm just sitting here in my basement bawling my eyes out. But it's really nice that we can do that for each other. So we've even got a Jason Colson song on the song list now too, so people can come in to the chat, request Jason Colson, and I will sing them a Jason Colson song. It's a really beautiful place.
We got a couple more questions for you, but I love that you mentioned Jason because I was watching his stream and demanded an obscure Supertramp track, and he played it. It was wonderful. Thank you, obscure Supertramp. It's all from Cole, who has a few questions here. How long until you unveil the drum set to the world on stream?
That's another Ableton thing, is that as soon as I'm able to learn the looping, and I think it's to a point where I've just got to reach out and try to probably hire a tutor, because it's one thing you can teach yourself a lot with tutorials, but sometimes you can find a lot of tutorials that just end up being promotional pieces that don't teach you anything, or you can find a lot of tutorials that go through a lot of stuff that you already know, and I just want to like look at someone point blank and be like, do I press this button? And then the person looks back to me and says, yes,
Oh,
That's the button. Because I've just been having a lot of issues with kind of looping, and there's an extra bar, and like all of these typical Ableton issues that somebody could help me deal with. But that drum set needs to be hooked up through the audio interface, and then if I'm able to loop it, then I can actually play it live because it'll be looped through. But right now it's not hooked up, so shh, it
okay,
doesn't
we won't talk about
exist.
that drum set any longer. Uh, what advice would you have for other streamers to try and build a wholesome community like the one you have fostered? Also from Cole.
Hmm. Well, I think that a lot of people do that really well in Twitch music. I think the people who are already attracted to music are people who love music, and we usually like music because it's something that connects us to others. So, a lot of people that are attracted to that specific part of the Twitch sphere, I
Mm.
guess, they tend to be wholesome to begin with, but I think it's really important that you have, again, lovely moderators. And I say that because we have such lovely moderators who are here right now. Having somebody to make the chat very wholesome and having somebody to welcome people in apart from you.
Mm.
So we all kind of lead by example, right? So if your whole chat is filled with really negative people, then the people who see what's going on and choose to stay to participate in it, it's just going to keep that ball rolling. But if everybody's just being really lovely, we've had lots of situations like we were talking about that front page stream earlier, where there's so many people there, and there are people who come in specifically to troll, and the mods have to work so hard to be timing out and banning people. But in some cases, people will come in and they'll start trolling, but everybody will just be so nice to them that they feel so bad that they immediately flip and they're no longer trolling and they just join in the niceness. So just,
Oh my
you got to
gosh.
go and just out nice people. But at first, just have family or friends. For me, it was a friend who moderated for me first, and he'd been with me for the Facebook and Instagram streams. And it's just like when you're in the chat, just if anybody is brave enough to go say hi to a bunch of strangers in an online space, can you please just say hi back, especially
Mm.
if I'm in the middle of a song. And then as we had more and more people join that moderating team, it just became like 5 or 6 people who at once would be like, hey, welcome in, how are you today? And it's just kind of like overwhelmed with like, there's these strangers who care, and we're like, yeah, we do care because you're here for a reason, right? And especially during this year, like I know how lonely I've been, so I can only imagine what it's been like for people. So it was really important that people felt welcome the second that they walked in. But I've been into lots of chats where like I'll say something, no one will respond, the streamer won't respond, and then you just kind of get that same like flashback to networking events where you have to hide in the bathroom, and then you don't want to be in that space anymore. So it's meant a lot that we already have so many lovely people there in the chat to welcome people in. At first, just encourage that to be your first moderator, and afterwards you'll see that everybody just starts doing that because they realize that's what kept them there and made them feel welcome. So we have lots of people who are just regulars of the stream that welcome people in the second they say something in the chat as well.
It's a good correlation to playing a live show, right? It's not just you making that
Mm-hmm.
show great. It's the sound person. It's the person at the door welcoming them. It's the bartender that's being nice. It's you after your show thanking people for coming, right?
Yeah.
So that's just all
Mm-hmm.
the same on the online space, it sounds like.
Absolutely. And just make really strong teams. And I'm really lucky that I've got the most incredible team with me on this journey. And I don't, every day I'm like, I don't know why you're so nice to me, but I'm really, really grateful that they are.
One more question from Cole, Danny, and it is, do you think being an educator has informed your various programs like StreamFest and a desire to fill that mentor role?
Hmm.
Mhm.
Um, I think for sure Streamfest was but that's also just like being a musician and an event planner, right? We get used to that. Joel has joined me for many a gelato show,
Mm.
and also for our ugly sweater parties. So every Christmas we get together, we raise money for charity, and we just have a great night. But it still requires putting together a schedule and making sure everybody knows what's going on. And the better prepared you are in advance, the more fun you can have at your own event, right? So Streamfest, it's just because I was putting together a schedule for myself for my birthday. I couldn't
Yeah.
see anybody, and I was like, you know what? I really loved watching streams this summer. I have a few streams that I really love to go to. And so that first Stream Fest, I did reach out to a few friends and say, hey, I'm going to be joining your stream on my birthday. Can I add you to this schedule? And then it just kind of became this weird, like, fill in the Google Doc thing. Like, it wasn't supposed to be what it's turned into. But now every second month, we have a Dinosaur Stream Fest. So we've featured up to 34 streamers in one day. We try to trigger a hype train in every stream, and it's turned into something so big that we couldn't actually book everybody that signed up last Stream Fest. But I think that having to learn to organize people and manage people, I've had to do that as a musician and as a teacher. So spreadsheets are life.
Oh my gosh. That gets a big heart from me. My geeky marketing heart loves spreadsheets. Friends, all these things that Danielle's been talking about, bringing friends together, and bouncing between multiple Zoom streams. I encourage you to check out that show on the July 22nd, because that's going to be in practice. Yeah, I assume you guys are going to be rating each other from each other's Twitch streams right into each other's shows. So you'll get to see that in practice. Because like it is, if you haven't seen it, it doesn't necessarily make sense, but it does when you see it. Any final thoughts for us, Danielle? Final thoughts?
Oh, well, because this is a studio tour, and I wrote back right away, and I was like, I'm still, it's still so weird to say that. I don't feel like this is just my basement. Welcome. It's strange to think about it like a studio, but it's the same thing that I put together a recorded studio tour for Megaphono last month, and that's also on my YouTube channel. And like I said there, like none of this existed a year ago. I don't consider myself to be an extraordinarily tech savvy person, but you can do this. And that was the kind of thesis behind that YouTube video as well, is that if I can do this, you can definitely do this. So I hope that it helped a little bit. I'm more than happy to talk to you about gear on Discord as well. We've got a whole video and stream support area if you're getting started. So feel free to connect with me wherever you are on the internet.
And I will provide links to that. As I said, everybody on the call today, I will have this recording up on the FMO YouTube by tomorrow, and I'll send a link to you along with links to Danielle's Twitch and her website and her Discord and all kinds of other fun things, particularly that show on the 22nd for Ovation Ottawa, full of Ottawa musicians, make my heart go pit-a-pat. Thank you so much again, Danielle. It was wonderful.